when I married Mark, I thought I had found my forever. He was the kind of man you could count on. Steady, dependable, a little boring in the best possible way. We met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's barbecue. He wasn't flashy or overly confident, just genuine and easy to be around. Over time, that steady presence became my safe place. Our life together wasn't a fairy tale, but it was comfortable. We bought a modest 2-story house with a little fenced-in backyard. We got a dog, Baxter, who had a ridiculous underbite and thought he was a guard dog despite weighing barely 20 pounds. We cooked dinner together most nights, or ordered pizza on Fridays when neither of us felt like cooking. On weekends, we'd run errands, binge-watch shows, or take Baxter to the park. It wasn't fireworks, but it was home. Still, somewhere along the way, the spark dimmed. We didn't fight much, but we didn't talk much either. Not in the way we used to. I'd tell him about my day, and he'd nod, absorbed in whatever was on his phone or the TV. We fell into routines so deep that I could predict every move before he made it. Then Ryan came into my orbit. He was the account director for one of my biggest clients at the event planning firm where I worked. Tall, confident, with an easy smile and the kind of charisma that filled a room. From the first meeting, he was charming, complimenting my work, making me laugh during stressful planning sessions, making me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. At first, I brushed it off as harmless. Plenty of people flirt a little at work, right? But as the months passed, our interactions became more personal. Late-night calls about event details turned into conversations about our lives. His messy divorce, my feeling like Mark and I were more roommates than partners lately. The first time it crossed the line was during a business trip to Chicago. We'd been working since early morning, touring venues and meeting with vendors. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. Ryan suggested we grab a drink in the hotel bar before heading to our rooms. The bar was dimly lit, quiet except for soft jazz playing in the background. We ordered wine. 1 glass turned into 2, and I found myself leaning in closer, laughing harder than I had in ages. When our knees brushed under the table, I didn't move away. He reached across, brushed his hand over mine, and instead of pulling back, I let him. When he suggested continuing the conversation upstairs, I didn't hesitate. I told myself it was just a one-time mistake, a blip I'd bury and never repeat. But it wasn't. It became a pattern. Anytime we traveled together for work, we'd find time alone. We were careful. No personal texting outside of work, no pictures, always an airtight cover story. And it was intoxicating. The thrill of secrecy, the stolen moments. The Las Vegas convention was the crown jewel of our industry, a 5-day marathon of networking, panels, and late-night parties hosted by sponsors. It was also going to be the longest stretch Ryan and I had together without having to be subtle. I'd been counting down for weeks. What I didn't know was that my best friend, Jenna, had been watching me more closely than I realized. She'd started to notice my vague answers when she asked about my trips, the way I smiled at my phone when I got certain messages. One night over drinks, she told Mark she thought I was cheating. Mark told me later that he'd laughed it off at first. He trusted me, but something about the way she said it made him uneasy. So, the morning after I flew to Vegas, he booked his own ticket. He didn't tell me. He wanted to surprise me. That Friday night, Ryan and I were in his hotel room, going over the next day's schedule in between kissing, half-dressed on the bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it, still smiling, until I saw the message. In the lobby. Can't wait to see you. The blood drained from my face. My hands shook. Ryan asked what was wrong, and when I told him, his expression mirrored mine. Panic. We scrambled. I threw on my dress, my hair still messy from his hands, my heart pounding in my ears. I told him to wait 5 minutes before leaving so we wouldn't be seen together. When the elevator doors slid open, there was Mark, sitting in a leather armchair, hands clasped, scanning every face. I tried to look surprised, like this was a happy coincidence. I opened my mouth to speak. And then Ryan stepped out of the next elevator. He saw me, smiled, and said my name in that too familiar, warm tone. Mark turned toward him, and I saw it, the shift in his face. Confusion first, then suspicion, then sudden, crushing certainty. What the hell is going on? His voice was sharp, loud enough for people at the front desk to glance over. I stammered something about work, about running into Ryan on the way down. But Ryan didn't back me up. He just stood there, silent, his eyes darting anywhere but at Mark. Mark didn't yell. He didn't ask for explanations. He just stood, looked at me like I was a stranger, and said, "We're done. Don't come home." Then he walked out. I chased him outside, heels clacking against the marble floor, tears blurring my vision. I grabbed his arm, begging him to listen, to let me explain. He stopped once, looked me dead in the eyes, and said quietly, "There's nothing you can say that makes this better." Then he got into a cab and was gone. When I flew home 2 days later, my key didn't work. My belongings were in boxes in the garage. Baxter was gone. Mark had taken him. An email from his lawyer was waiting for me before I'd even unpacked. The fallout was swift. Friends stopped answering my calls. My family, who had adored Mark, told me they were ashamed of me. At work, whispers followed me in the hallways. My boss reassigned the client to someone else, and Ryan and I stopped speaking completely. Now I live in a small apartment with paper-thin walls and a view of the parking lot. Most nights, I lie awake replaying that moment in the lobby. The second Mark's eyes locked with mine and everything unraveled. People talk about how affairs destroy trust, but they don't talk about how they destroy the version of yourself you thought you were. I used to think I was loyal, decent, someone who would never do this. Now I'm the woman who burned down her own life for a handful of stolen moments. And the worst part? I can't even tell myself it wasn't worth it, because that would imply it was worth something.